Hello everyone, welcome to Success Strategy. In this video, I will be teaching on the concept of micro habits. Don't forget that habits are tiny particles of our lives that compound together to determine what we are going to do at time. So we're going to be looking at micro habits, some key elements of habits, and how we can take advantage of them to improve our lives. So when we talk about micro habits, we are talking about certain things that you can do, little things that you can do, but that can have a tremendous impact in your life. Little things that you can do that can have great impact in our lives. Don't forget that as humans, we are product of habits. We are product of habits. Our habits are things that we do unconsciously, but that have or that has great impact in our lives. So one of those things we shall be talking about concerning micro habits today, one of the key things, one of the things we should know is that habit formation is a gradual process. Habit formation is a gradual process. Small, consistent habits, either good or bad, accumulate together to form what our character will be. So that is one thing we should take note of. So little habits come together, compound together to determine what will be. Now, one other thing that we should know is that small wins in our habits encourages our confidence. A little win in our habits, if for example you want to improve on your exercise level, for instance, let's take for example that you want to jog let's say 5 kilometers per morning. Start from a half kilometer. Start from a half kilometer and celebrate that half kilometer. You'll be surprised that if this action is consistent over time, you will go for a kilometer, you will go for 2 kilometers. Eventually, you will arrive at that 5 kilometers that you have set for yourself. So, when you form a new habit, celebrate the win. Now, another important thing we need to know about habits is this. There is what is called the habit loop. The habit loop is made up of 3 key elements. The first one is the cue. The second one is the routine. And the third one is the reward. The cue is what initiates a particular habit, born out of our craving. Our cravings, triggers our habits. What we crave for triggers our habit, either in the left or the right side, either in the positive or the negative side. So the cue is what initiates the habit. Then the second thing is a routine. The second thing is a routine. The routine is what you can use or you can apply to replace the cue. The routine, if you have a negative habit, for example, and you want to change that habit, the routine is what you can use or you can apply to replace the cue. Then the last one, which is the reward. The reward is a benefit gained from your action, is a benefit gained from the routine. This is very key, and I want us to take note of these three elements of our habit loop: the cue, which is the trigger or the initiator. It's the element that initiates our habits, born out of our cravings. Then the routine, then eventually the reward. Now, other things that we need to know about our habits, because habits are foundational to our success, and that is why it is very important that we look at it. That is why it is very important that we examine it. So, part time, we should be able to sit down and look at the habits that contribute to our success. Is very important. So let's look at other important things that we need to know about habits. You see, we've got to identify the habits that brings greater result or greater impact into our lives. Habits could even be positive, but we've got to sit down, ask the question that, does this habit have great effect or great impact in our life? It is very important. So habits that does not contribute much to our lives are better relegated. They are better dropped down for habits that can give us exponential results. For example, in health, habits like stretching, like doing exercise, is very key in improving our health. Therefore, we can look at it as an habit that has a great impact. So also, let's look at productivity. Reading is an habit, is a high impact habit that can improve our productivity. And that is why it is good, to cultivate that habit, the habit to be able to read. It enhances our productivity. I'm not saying here our academic courses, I'm not saying our, our subjects that we study in school, but general reading enhances productivity. So it's an high impact habit that can bring exponential results. Let's look at another one. Mindset, for example. Our mindset. What habit do we think can improve our mindset? One of it is gratitude. Being grateful, helps us, helps our mindset. Being grateful helps our mindset. Gratitude, reflecting on what has been achieved rather than what has not been achieved, can help our mindset. It is very important. These are high impact habits that we need to embrace in order for us to achieving success in our desired area of life, it is very key. Don't forget that we are looking at success strategy. So if we are going to be successful in that project, in that life endeavor, in that academic endeavor, habit is very important. Habit is very important. Now let's look at another key thing about habits. There is what is called habit stacking. To stack something, to put something together. Good habits, when stacked together, compound over time. It works like compound interest in mathematics. Good habits, when you stack them, habits are difficult to form, especially the good ones. They are difficult to form. But like I said initially, gradually, consistency, small habits per time can help. So habit stacking helps. You don't want to achieve everything in one day or even in 1 year, but when you start them gradually, when you begin to practice them over time, it will compound such that you begin to exhibit the habit involuntarily. So habit stacking is very key. It is often said that Rome wasn't built in a day. So we've got to start from somewhere. Now let's look at another key thing that we need to know. Consistency is key in habit stacking. Consistency is key. Consistency is very important. And to be consistent, it requires a lot of discipline. To be consistent requires to be disciplined. It is not easy. When you make a resolution that I want to cultivate this habit, want to cultivate a particular habit, you'll be surprised that when you practice it for a day, 2 days, some weeks, if you are not disciplined, you will realize that habit will be put aside, that habit will be jettisoned. So consistency is very key, and the consistency may not be something very big, maybe in little wins, but the ability to move forward, the ability to persist in that new habit is very key for us to be able to cultivate that new habit. Now let's look at another thing that is very important. It is very key that we track and gauge our habit. Somebody said something you do not track, you cannot measure. So it is very important while trying to form a new habit that we track it, then we gauge it, we measure it in relation to where we started. We measure it in relation to the baseline. So that will help us to know whether we've been able to cultivate that habit or not. Then it will equally give us it will equally boost our confidence and give us the morale to move forward, especially if we have been able to achieve this habit or cultivate this habit to a particular length. Now, other things we need to do is that, like I said, we need to celebrate our small wins. It's very important when we are able to look back and realize that we are not more where we used to be. So it is very important that we celebrate the small wins is very key. Now, we can scale our micro habit. We can scale our micro habit into major success. Like I've said, when we celebrate our small win, it's like climbing the next rung of the ladder. So when you look back, you've climbed the first rung, then you can move forward, you can scale it, and before you know it, you begin to exhibit this habit involuntarily, unconsciously. So I want to challenge you to replace bad habits with the good ones. Bad habits with the good ones. Don't forget the other time I made an illustration that our habit, either good or bad, is more or less like on a number line. The left side is on the negative and the right side is on the positive. So the more you cultivate bad habits, the more negative it becomes. Say for example, you are starting from 0, you cultivate the negative and it becomes -1, -2, -3 in that order. And in the same vein, if the habit is a good one, when you begin to stack it, you start from 0 to +1 to +2 to +3 to +4. In that order, it begins to compound. So it is very important. So we can stack habit over time, and that habit can become a compound. So, and if we're going to succeed in whatever we do, our habit is very important. Thank you so much for your listening attention. I would like you to like this video and subscribe to this channel. If you find this valuable.